I'm in Cranston, Rhode Island this morning at this decrepit cemetery where things over the last 20 years or so have gone from bad to worse. So this is the Oak Hill Cemetery, which I believe dates back to the mid-1800s. And what once was a beautiful place to have a loved one laid to rest has become basically abandoned and plagued by garbage dumping and unkept graves. And there's really no one to even contact. The main office here is boarded up and falling apart. And although there's technically plots still for sale, I don't think anyone has been buried here for quite some time. Now, volunteers do help out sometimes, but it's an uphill battle at this point. And honestly, this is a very sad sight. So because of this state, this dilapidated state of this cemetery, I needed to bring in someone who had a lot of experience with this sort of thing. So I brought in this guy, Fascinating Graveyard. He is the man when it comes to anything cemetery related. So I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no problem.
So ever since the owners died here in the early 2000s, things have gotten pretty bad here. It's become a common dumping ground. But that's not even the worst of it. There was a giant mausoleum here, right? Abandoned?
Yeah, it's been abandoned for the better part of at least 20 years. I believe in the early 2000s it was deemed condemned by the building inspector here in Cranston. And it's basically been a game of pointing fingers, a bunch of political empty suits saying, no, it's your fault, no, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. And of course you factor in the cost of disinterring all of the bodies inside of the mausoleum and then reinterring them. You're talking about at least $2.5 million it would cost to remove all the bodies.
That's what I read. Something between $6,000 and $7,000 per body, and there are hundreds of bodies left in this, right?
Yeah, they got a few dozen out, but there's at least 400, and the records were actually destroyed by the orders of a judge. I have no idea why they did that.
And this place has been falling apart for decades. I mean, it's really in horrible shape.
Yeah, it's been on all over the news and what have you, and it just nobody's doing much about it. Like you're covering the graves, you can't even see their names. Look at this right there. Look at that.
One of the more notable, horrible situations about this place, at least in recent years, was a woman who came to visit her father, who was a World War II veteran, only to find his grave buried in garbage and dirt. I don't know exactly where that was, but
It was right here where I'm standing.
Was it really?
Yeah.
An update tonight on a cemetery in Cranston that's turned into a dumping ground.
A dump truck on site being loaded up with TVs and trash that were covering up a gravestone of a World War II veteran, among others.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very sad.
So just to clarify, this is a privately owned cemetery. So it's very difficult for local authorities or the state to get involved in this. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of court proceedings that have gone on, that continue to go on. There are a lot of people who come here and donate their time, landscape companies, things like that, but it is a huge cemetery. I believe most record keeping was, you said it was destroyed, right? At least in the mausoleum.
At least in the mausoleum, so, you know, who knows who's really out here.
Yeah.
Sloppy record keeping.
Yeah, and we're going to get inside the mausoleum just in a minute and show you what it looks like in there, because it is truly deplorable conditions in there. So this is inside the Roger Williams Park Mausoleum, and it's really unfortunate to see obvious signs of theft and possibly even grave robbing in here. So these bowls right here, you see all these marbles?
Yeah.
This is how they pull the casket in and out. They slide it in and out on those marbles.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Look at his caskets on the floor. I don't know if these things are empty or if there's bodies in them. So this mausoleum dates back to the early 1920s, I believe, but records are scarce. There are some records that I found of the original owner applying for and receiving a patent in 1927 for some kind of a special drainage system for this building. And then, oddly enough, that owner's daughter, Catherine Cullinan, was the very last person to be laid to rest here. And that was back in 2002. That was really the beginning of all the problems for this place, roughly 20 years ago. Once she and her sister passed away, there was no money left to care for this mausoleum. And the named receiver wanted nothing to do with the property. And so began 20 years of a battle, or more so a stalemate, between the property and the state of Rhode Island. And as this mausoleum continued crumbling, a superior judge deemed it a safety hazard and ordered the building abandoned in 2012, and here it sits. So hopefully they'll be able to get the rest of whoever is buried in that mausoleum out in time before that thing collapses. I mean, there's supposedly still a few hundred bodies left in there. So we have some optimism for now, but we'll see what happens in the future. But big thanks to Lamont for showing me this place, telling me about it. Definitely check out his channel, Fascinating Graveyard, especially if you're into this kind of stuff, graveyards and things like that. He travels all over the country doing this stuff. So we're going to get out of here. We spent enough time here. See you in the next video.
Peace.